personally experienced what it is like to go to war and the repercussions of it, or a person who's been in a prolonged war, I do not have the fundamental ability to argue against the person who has actually been through that, or multiple people who have actually been through that. There is a limit of your experience.
So there's a philosopher by the name of Ken Wilber who talks about exactly what you're discussing. And it's exactly where I pick up the argument from. Now, Ken Wilber is largely considered the greatest living philosopher alive today. Now, in a book called The Eye of Spirit, he makes an argument to which there are fundamental different types of data sets. He says there's something called intelligibilia, sensibilia, and transcendentia. Now, he says intelligibilia is the direct encounter with the data of concept. Like, for example, the sense of having a concept is a unit of intelligibilia. He says the data of perception is called sensibilia. So the sense that there's some intelligibility. So he says that the sense of something being present is called sensibilia. But he says that religious experience actually has its own data set. And he says this is called transcendentia. Now, sensibilia could be accessed through a microscope. Intelligibilia could be accessed through conceptual thought. But transcendentia cannot be accessed through the methods of that by which sensibilia is accessible, nor of which intelligibilia is accessible. So you need an entirely different set of algorithms in order to produce the data set, which is relevant in order to understand and know what God is. So he says religion itself is the actual system by which you put together the hypothetical frameworks to devise psycho-spiritual experiments for producing a data set called transcendentia. Now, he says something like this. He says that science in and of itself consists of different steps. He says the first step is an injunction. He says it's not the formulation of a hypothesis, it's the formulation of an injunction. He says an injunction is a series of steps that you have to take that are repeatable and measurable. He says now the injunction itself is always paradigmatically contingent. It has axioms and it has a worldview that it's married to by default, which is its paradigm. So he says before you can have an injunction, you have to choose what worldview you're going to actually operate from to execute your injunction. So he says the problem of why science cannot find God is that it uses only injunctions from the worldview that's only capable of accessing sensibilia. And for that exact reason, it has no recourse to transcendentia. So all of its criticisms are complete non-sequitur.
I want to talk and argue with you guys.
Give me a second. So I'm trying to explain something. So now what Ken Wilber says is that if you want to know whether or not God exists, then you have to follow the scientific method. And if you're not willing to follow the scientific method, you're not allowed in the discussion. And he says, here's the scientific method. Go into a church. He says, hold on. User, shut your fucking mouth. No one's talking to you.
Okay. Wait.
So he says this. If you want to know God exists, but you don't have to follow the scientific method the way that you want to put together, because you're not an expod. And you have to do it their way, because they're the authorities. Now, they're going to give you a paradigm. And that paradigm is going to be called one of 7 different paradigms. It's going to be called Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. This is the paradigm. You have to assume it true. He said from that framework of assuming the paradigm true, you then have to follow the injunctions that the paradigm describes for generating the knowledge that it produces. And if you're not willing to do that, generating the knowledge that it produces. And if you're not willing to do that, you are as irrelevant to the conversation as the Vatican trying to say there's no such thing as planets, and they refuse to look down the actual telescope looking at the moons of Jupiter. You're not willing to look down the telescope. You don't get to you're not included in the conversation. You're an idiot. You don't know shit, and you refuse to look down the telescope. So we don't have to even listen to you at all, because you are out of your lane. So if you want to know whether or not God exists, here's how you do this. Join a monastery and pray for 8 years. If you're not willing to do that, shut the fuck up. You can't know. The people who can't know are the ones who are willing, the ones who did it and got it done, and they had the result. They looked down the telescope, they saw the data, and they passed it along to other people who put the work, and now they're having conversations with it that will forever exclude you. You're not allowed in that conversation because you're a nitwit.
I love that. I usually try to be more sympathetic, but no, so much truth there. So much truth, but
Yeah, but
There's so
Deathless,
much
if
fucking truth there,
somebody said, well, hang on. If somebody asked you, that said to know God, you have to use this four-sided triangle, right? That's what I think you're offering.
Fuck
You're
you.
offering
Well,
some.
here's how we're going to say that.
Wait. Hang on. I've been listening for a long time, right? I've been thinking about your view deeply, right? And let me know if I'm representing it correctly. It's something like that ultimate reality is a self-conscious theory, like a logos that includes all perspectives and grounds itself. Something like
Yes.
that, right?
Okay. I'll tell you what my idea is.
No. I've heard it. I just want to make sure I'm like summarizing it in a coherent way.
hold on.
And I think that's actually the key issue.
One thing is like 5 seconds.
Oh my God.
5 seconds.
got it wrong.
I will say it differently. I will say that differently, vastly differently, but I'll let Deathless.
I'm talking to Deathless right now.
So this is my perspective. You got it wrong. It's already wrong. You're already wrong.
The ultimate reality is a self-conscious theory, a logos that includes all perspectives and grounds itself. That's not
my whole
view.
view. It's not my whole
Well,
view.
I know it's not your whole view. Your whole view is like 38 minutes long.
This is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if we're going to describe it correctly, I would say it this way. God is wholly divine reality. And that's the only argument I need to make. Everything else can be derivative from that proposition. So holy means this. Holy means omniconsistent.
Yeah.
Divine means parachoretic. It also means fractal. So if I say that God is wholly divine reality, I'm saying that every single element in that is a fractal recursion of every other element in the proposition.
And I can actually hold on. I can explain it very simply.
I'm saying this. God is I'm saying God is the logical structure of all conceivable experience imaginable.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. But if that's the case, then this logos is already operating within a deeper structural framework. It's not the source of those rules. It's bound by them.
That would be predicted by the theory.
Yeah, and more.
But it's not the source. It can't ground these things.
No, it can't.
It operates within them.
Hold on.
I promise.
Hey, hold on, Jones. I'm trying to answer something.
Okay.
And that's predicted by the theory. I'm going to explain to you how and why.
Okay.
My theory generates itself backwards through time, from the end of time to the past.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant because it's not going to provide. You're providing a description. You're not grounding it.
So you're not understanding. My description hangs from the ceiling. It doesn't ground.
Okay. I can actually
what hangs from the ceiling. The only thing that's going to be necessary are these structural invariants, right? Of like identity, non-contradiction.
No. Hold on. Let me. I promise it's like less than 30 seconds.
Who is this guy? I don't care what he has to say.
No,
I care what he has to say because he was part of the conversation before you were here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so but I'm asking about your view,
let me explain.
Deathless.
And
Deathless is his view, your view.
It's both of our views.
Okay. If he can speak for you, then that's fine.
Okay. What the point in position is this. All information that exists within the universe, there's one piece of information that is infinitely important that will never be more important if it is true. If God is real, there is no sentence, there is no piece of information, comprehension, understanding, or experience that tops that reality. If God is actually real and cares about the condition of human consciousness and human life, everything else, and I mean literally everything else, your life, your 401k, your bank account, your country, none of that matters. What it means to say is that if the statement of God is true, everything else is subjected to that statement. And therefore, that statement, that comprehension, that possibility should be considered with the utmost seriousness to every other statement. Because if God is not true, you don't have to care about anything. But if God is true, you have to care about everything.
All right, that sounds like an appeal to consequences.
Fuck does that
couldn't care less about that. Look, I'm rejecting the idea that an ultimate reality is a being, a mind, a theory, or a self-aware logos, right? The only thing that's going to be necessary is a set of pre-ontological structural constraints that are going to be identified, like identity, relationality, multiplicity, orderability, structural coherence, and inferential closure.
And I get it on
These are
that.
the structural pre-ontological constraints on anything that can exist. These are the things that are going to ground intelligibility, not a
No, no,
being.
you're completely missing what I'm saying. What I'm saying
I don't
is,
think I told you I didn't care about an appeal to consequences.
no, it's not an appeal to consequences.
It is. You said if God exists,
First of all,
then you get all these nice
don't
things.
understand
If
what I'm
God
saying,
doesn't
you
exist,
ask
then all these
clarifying
nice things
questions.
don't happen.
I think
That's
it's
not
entirely
no,
true.
you're missing. Hold on. You're missing my point. Let me just finish. What I am saying is that, like, all the information possible that you're talking about is still founded upon this one piece of information that God is real.
No, I'm telling you, it cannot ground. You can only impersonal structural invariance can ground sense, thought, perception, any of these things.
All right, so
anything else is
hold
going
on.
to presuppose these constraints. It can't explain them.
Flencer. Would you really like me to just take this idea apart pretty easily?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so what are the preconditions by which something is grounded? What are the meta prioris?
It's going to be these structural invariants, things that are going to be true of
So
any...
I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something about why my apocalyptic mythorealism completely kicks the shit out of this worldview.
Cool. So identity, relationality, multiplicity.
No. Excuse me. So we're going to look at the 4 fundamental laws of logic. We're going to look at identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, and sufficient reason.
I don't hold to excluded middle, but go ahead.
It doesn't matter. It's an irrelevant objection. Because even if you didn't or if you did, the argument would still hold. Now, identity is itself specifically because there is an external set of parameters which constrain it to itself as an identity relation under the self-reflexivity principle. Now, because there is an actual abstract force which is outside of the law of identity that
these aren't abstract. These aren't abstract ideas. These are pre-ontological structural constraints.
Excuse me.
You're proposing a metaphysics that I don't hold to.
Look, here's what it is. There is an X that constrains identity relation to itself that is not in the jurisdiction of identity relation by definition. See, this is what you're not understanding. There is an enigmatic X that transcends the identity.
There is an X is invoking identity.
Excuse me. Pay attention to what I'm saying.
If you're not referring to something and it doesn't have structure, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's called the principle of omniconsistency. So watch me just destroy this.
Okay.
So now in meta logic, in omniconsistent logic, which I'm the father of and I've developed, and I'm going to explain it to you. Now, in order to be conscious of a contradiction,
what's it called? Omniconsistent what?
Omniconsistent logic. It's not published yet.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to find anything on it. But I'll tell you.
Well, I'm proposing something called ontological admissibility theory, and it's also not published yet.
That's okay. So in this particular instance, in order for something to actually have identity, there must be a set and a parameter by which you actually are aware of the sense of the proposition, the attitude of the proposition, and the mood of the proposition. Because if it doesn't actually have a determined attitude, sense, and mood, which I'm not sure if you know what those are with respect to actual relations and logic,
it's not going to matter. You can't get to omniconsistency unless your system already satisfies my structural invariance.
Excuse me, your system contradicts itself.
No, it can't contradict itself. It grounds logic.
If your system can't contradict itself, then the system cannot contradict itself, is included in the system. And if the proposition it can't contradict itself is included in the system, and the proposition it can't contradict itself includes the concept of a contradiction, which by definition is a self-contradiction, that means we falsified your system because it just contradicted itself.
What in the fucking tautology?
You're just spewing word games right now.
No, but it was just that easy to blow up.
Does omniconsistent logic obey the law of identity or not?
No.
Does it obey non-contradiction or not?
No.
Then it's incoherent, and it doesn't exist.
Straight up tautology.
No, actually, omniconsistent logic, in my hypothesis, determines the various constraints by which paradigms of identity themselves are allowable.
I like that, actually. I'd love to hear more.
But it has to presuppose identity to do anything.
No, but you're
not understanding what I'm saying.
It has to presuppose identity to do anything, or you're not saying anything.
No, you're not hearing anything because you're dumb.
No,
So allow me to
it's
make it
because
simple.
you're saying incoherent things.
No, you
You're
don't.
rejecting a principle of
First of all,
identity
you're not
and
My
invoking
worldview-
it at the same
hold on,
time in your
my worldview-
definition.
My worldview, hold on, my worldview cannot translate coherently into your puddle.
You are presupposing identity as you make this statement.
No, I'm exopposing it from the end of time backwards.
What? Okay, whatever. Whatever
Right.
you're doing.
No, right.
You're,
So no,
it's-
here's what
you're
it, no, here's what it is.
presupposing.
No, no, no,
These
no,
conditions
no, I'm not
have to be true for your
I'm not.
statement to make any sense.
No, excuse me. Only in a time forward scientific model, which I reject. My model
This isn't about temporal priority. It's about metaphysical priority. It's about logical priority. It's about grounding.
You're not understanding anything I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
You literally not.
You're invoking temporal asymmetry.
No. What you're doing is literally putting labels on my concepts that I created.
No,
But
I'm
they're
showing
your
how they're still invoking my structural invariants to function. It doesn't matter what they are.
You're not talking about anything I'm talking about.
Whatever you talk about is going to presuppose these five structural invariants in some way, shape, or form.
No. But this is the problem. Your foundation of logic cannot prove its own foundation of logic. You yourself, okay.
I make a transcendental argument. This is a transcendental argument for the preconditions of intelligibility.
How do you get the logic argument?
Hey, Jones, I need you to be quiet for a second. I need everyone to be quiet here because apparently the only argument this guy has is talking while I'm talking. So Jones, let's go back into omniconsistent logic. I'm going to explain to you my theory. Now, the first principle is called omniletheon. Omniletheon is a transcendent unity of all conceivable fact and fiction. So that's the axiom. I begin from the axiom of all conceivable axioms that from an intrinsic explosion, everything is inferable. So now, because the only fundamental axiom that must necessarily exist at the foundation of all conceivable systems must be the axiom that all axioms have in common by virtue of the fact that they all have a property.
Why do you accept the principle of explosion?
Hold on. So
because it's irrational.
So
my invariants aren't even axioms.
So excuse me, you don't even know what your own terms mean.
They're not axioms in a logical or mathematical sense. You can formalize them as axioms within a system.
Push pause. If they're not axioms in a logical sense, and axioms are by definition a logical sense, then they're not axioms, and your system falsifies itself.
I said you can formalize them as axioms within a system, but they're pre-ontological constraints. They're not postulates inside of a system. They are not optional starting points. These are necessary structural filters on anything that can be said to exist.
There's a contradiction in what you just said.
No, you just haven't understood.
No.
I call them the sigma invariants. These are not axioms within an ontology. You need to listen. These are not axioms within an ontology. They're transcendental structural constraints that make any ontology viable.
Where do you get the word ontology from?
Shut the fuck
ontology
up.
doesn't just exist in the universe. Ontology is a direct. Ontology is a direct.
Jones.
Is that what you're holding up to, Jones?
You're making. Yeah, thank you. So if you have axioms that can be translated into a formal ontology that don't exist in an ontology, and therefore they cannot be translated into axioms in a logical or an ethical sense or in any philosophical sense,
you're misunderstanding already.
Then the term axiom itself is a logical fallacy of a misnomer.
False.
The term structure itself is a logical fallacy of misnomers. The structures are definitionally interrelations between axioms.
False.
Sorry, you lost. And it was
Let me
that
give you,
lost.
You're familiar with, do you even know what I mean by a structural invariant?
Yeah, I do know what a structural invariant is. You're talking about an absolute structure that stays consistent across all planes of reference from all perspectives.
Right. And the way that they constrain ontology is going to be similar to, you're familiar with the bridges of Konigsberg paradox or example?
Yes.
Okay. It's just like in graph topology is going to determine whether a path covering all bridges and a possible
non sequitur,
right?
Total non sequitur. No,
I'm saying the constraints that are in this example are structural constraints. They're not assumed. They're preconditions. They're not propositions.
Circular argument.
You can formalize the structural invariants as axioms, but they're not.
Totally
That's just for
circular.
like representational convenience.
What the fuck is
The
Completely
ontological
circular.
status
Hold on.
of the invariance
Bro.
is pre-systemic.
That was totally circular. You want me to explain to you how and
It
why?
wasn't, sir.
What do you-
It was a
No, first of all,
well-grounded
so here's what you
system.
did. No. Here's what you did. You evoked your principles, and then
Yeah.
you evoked your principles as fundamental.
Yeah,
Then
using a transcendental argument.
that's fine. You evoked your principles using a transcendental argument as fundamental, even to topology. Then you said we use topology to prove the principle's true.
No.
But that's-
I used it as
No,
an
no, you
example of a
actually said that.
structural constraint.
And so we got you.
I
was
used
that
it
easy.
as an example of a structural constraint,
Doesn't
as
matter.
an
Doesn't
analogy
matter. It was
to
still
how
there.
these
Right. I
function
got
as
you.
structural constraints
Right, I got
on
you.
ontology.
Your accident was that quickly to pick
You're
up.
running away. Why are you running away?
Because I
I'm
already
correcting
defeated
you. Accept
already
the
defeated you.
correction and move on.
How about this? Just admit you lost.
What?
Why would I admit I lost? You ran to the corner and started crying, and I'm standing
So
over
here's-
here with my structural invariance,
Okay,
totally
so
undefeated.
here's the problem. So let's falsify your whole worldview in a nutshell.
You've tried 17 ways from Sunday,
I
and
did-
every
I just
time you do
contradic-
it, you invoke my structural invariance.
So if the structural invariance, in order to be, watch this. If you have a structural invariance, then the structural invariance is invariant to itself. If the structure is invariant even to itself, then the structural invariant has no process by which it could actually operate invariantly.
It's
If the
not.
structure
It doesn't
if
operate.
the
It's
structure
not an
itself-
ontic thing.
Hold on. If the
Tautology.
structure-
It doesn't exist.
if the
It's not in
structure-
the
hold on.
ontology. It's not a
If the
piece of
structure-
furniture
if
in the
the
room.
If the structure is invariant to itself, such that it lacks ontology, then it lacks identity and it falsifies itself, and you lose.
No, you're just not understanding
How do you
what
lose? How do you lose?
metaphysics is.
How do
You're
you
not
lose? No,
understanding
your
what a
idea contradicts itself.
pre-ontological
Your
framework
idea,
is.
yeah, your idea contradicts itself.
How does
Look,
it
you can
contradict
say that,
itself?
derive the
I'm going to
contradiction.
explain. In
When
order
you
for your
derive
structure-
it,
so
when you
watch
attempt to
this.
derive it, you're going
Hold
to
on.
invoke
Watch
the very
the contradiction.
invariants
I
that
got-
you're claiming
Bro, I got
are
you.
being contradicted.
Bro, I got you. If it's structurally invariant, then it's structurally invariant to itself. If it's structurally invariant to itself, it is unconditional to itself, and therefore it lacks all process because it does not change in time. If it lacks all process in time, process itself
It's
is
not
structurally-
in time.
Watch
It's
this.
not
If
an
pro-
ontic.
Watch this. Watch this. Gotcha.
It is a
hold on. Hold on.
pre-ontological
Watch.
structural filter.
I'm glad you
Get
said
that. Get
that.
your
I'm
mind
glad you
around
said
that.
that because you just made it even worse for you. Watch.
Okay, you're gonna
if
switch
you're-
to
now, if-
try to
now,
get an
if you're
armbar. Switch to a triangle. Go
your
for the
structural-
guillotine. You're
if
just
your
failing.
If your structural invariance is invariant to itself, so it doesn't even exist within time, and the definition of existence is to exist
These are
within time.
pre-ontological, crazy man.
Now, if it's pre-ontological, that means it comes prior to structure, and that's still a spatio-temporal.
Logically prior,
Begging the question.
not
that's begging the
temporally.
question.
Again,
I got you. How's
no,
it
you
loose?
didn't. You got nothing.
I got you.
You're digging in the dirt and you're pulling
How
up
do you feel,
worms,
Luke?
and you're like, look what I
how do you feel,
got. And
Luke?
I'm saying that's not what I'm
How do you
talking
feel,
about.
Luke?
I don't care about your worms.
How to feel lose? I got you.
You didn't even win
I-
anything, dude. The only
Dude,
thing
how-
that
I
you
just-
were using was
Dude, how does it feel? I
topology for
just
your
broke your arm in
argument.
that armbar.
It's like
I
a
just broke your
botchering
arm
of
in that
Platonic, like platonic relational on
That's
I
your
broke
own
your arm.
armbar. You got yourself in a guillotine, man.
I'm sure you think
You've
that.
choked yourself out.
I'm sure. Hey,
I'm
let me
sorry.
ask you: is your structural invariance structurally invariant?
What the fuck does that even mean?
If your principle of structural invariance is structurally invariant, that means it lacks process and structure.
No.
If it lacks process and
because,
structure, it lacks
hey,
identity.
let me explain
You lose.
something to you. No, let me explain something to you. What I've provided is a very... Okay, stop your hyena
It's
cackle.
structurally
Listen,
invariant, so it lacks
listen,
structure and
listen,
process. It lacks
listen.
identity. You lose. Ah!
No, not at all. You're
not at all.
confusing
Not at
the
all.
furniture in the room with what makes a building possible, right? I'm talking about what it rigorously means to say something is metaphysically possible or necessary or impossible. And I'm proposing these 5 structural invariants as the necessary precondition for anything that can be said to exist. That includes universes that are just purely logical in structure, right? It includes things for which there is no time or process at all. It includes descriptions of static universes. It includes any description of anything that could possibly be said to exist, not just this particular universe that we have. It is pre-ontological. It is the gatekeeper for anything that could be said to exist, because for something to be coherent as something that can instantiate, it has to obey these 5 structural invariants. If it misses out on even one, it is a pseudo concept and fails instantiation.
That was just nonsensical at all. Like, this is why they call him Tautology Tom.
Did he run? That
Well, it seems like
fucker.
he dropped.
He just laughed before he left.
He says, bring me up.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna look. Here's the.
Did you
argument
hear what I
against Stroke.
said?
Yeah, I heard it. It's riddled with contradictions. It was a contradictory mess of
Wait,
horseshit.
so what's the P and
Okay,
not P?
derive the contradiction. Go ahead.
Sure. So if it's the case that ideal evidence or ideal explanation and ideal certainty together, well, let's put it this way.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What-
I never said any of those things. Derive the contradiction from my 5 structural invariants as the ontological precondition for anything to be said to exist at all. It has
Cool.
nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with process. Use the
So
words
here's
that
the-
I use and derive a contradiction.
Sure. Precondition by definition is a condition. That means a precondition by definition is a contradiction to itself and therefore falsifies itself.
It's not a
This
contradiction.
is your
Repeating statements, dude.
Now, in this particular instance, because you actually attempted to establish the absolute fact of a precondition without including its necessary negation as intrinsic to the definition with respect to how universals and universals in particulars interrelate across an adjective rule set, you built in an intrinsic contradiction at the foundations of your system, specifically because dualistic propositions are impossible to make outside of a framework of space and time.
doesn't
So
matter.
because-
It applies
so now-
to
now-
either a
well, it
dualistic
does-
or a
it does-
monistic framework.
It does matter because
Look,
monism.
you're just equivocating on the word condition. There's a categorical
No,
difference
excuse
between
me,
a
excuse me,
condition.
excuse me. I'm attacking your use
Listen,
of the
there's a
term.
categorical. I'm going to explain to you how you're equivocating, and then you can agree or disagree. But there's a categorical difference between a condition within an ontological system and a structural constraint that makes any system possible.
That's a contradiction.
It's like
in
saying
terms of
that's like saying the
That's a
rules of the
contradiction in
game
terms which
are
is
just a
logically
move.
impossible because if
You're
there's a
saying that the
difference
rules
between
of
a
the
categorical
game are
proposition
just another
that
move
occurs
in the
inside of an
game,
ontological
but
system
they're
and one
not.
that doesn't.
They're what
If
makes
a
the move
proposition
count
occur-
as a
if
valid move
if
in
a
the first
proposition
place.
occurs outside of an ontological system, it doesn't exist.
That's it. No, the ontological system exists, but the
So, excuse me.
preconditions for them are not an ontic. They're
Excuse
not a
me,
piece of
that's-
furniture within the
that's
ontology.
contradicting terms.
They're
No,
a
it's not- it's not-
precondition for any ontology to exist.
If the axioms themselves don't occur in an ontological system,
They're not fucking axioms. I've already explained that. They can be
If
formalized
anything-
as axioms,
if
but
anything
they're just
conceivable-
structural invariants, kind of like what prevents you
anything
from
conceivable-
crossing over bridges more, less than once.
So a priori, if something is conceivable, and that conceivable thing is conceived outside of an ontological system, when
Conceivability is
conception
not-
itself occurs
is
within
not
a
one of the
ontological
structural
system,
invariants.
then it's a contradiction. It's a reductio ad absurdum. Your
Conceivability
system
is not
falsifies
one of the
itself.
structural invariants.
Now, because conception itself occurs within an ontological system, and
Conceivability
your idea,
is not
which is
one of the
that it occurs
invariants.
outside of an ontological system, but it itself must be mediated by an ontological system called conception. Your ontological system falsifies itself on pain.
You're not understanding what metaphysics is. Look, there's no self-refutation here. The sigma invariance that I'm proposing isn't a proposition being asserted within the framework. It's the
sigma
precondition for
invariance
there being
itself
any
occurs within the
framework.
framework of
This
actual
isn't a
invariant
metaphysical
set
claim
relationships, which is
about an
itself a logical
entity
structure, which
or
is
a
itself
state of
conceptually and
affairs.
paradigmatically contingent on conscious
It's a
minds, which are
transcendental
themselves
constraint
paradigmatically
on
contingent
what
on
must
ontological
hold
structure,
for anything
which
to be
means at the
intelligible at
foundation
all.
of your system, you are appealing to
You're just equivocating.
No, can I add one thing?
You're
the framework
equivocating.
in order to hold itself together. So that's a contradiction in your terms.
It's
Can I add one thing?
You don't have a
pre-framework.
coherent theory. It contradicts itself.
It's not a framework. It is a pre-ontological. Before
If you
the
have a framework,
exists,
if you have a framework, then the
it
framework
has
itself
to
is a
adhere
noun.
to these invariants.
Nouns are objects, and all objects are governed
It
by the
has-
principle of sufficient
look,
reason.
that's a
Every noun that
linguistic
exists has a
bullshit
cause.
gloss
Your
that you're
framework is
putting
a
on
noun.
stuff.
Your framework
You're
exists.
You're
Therefore, your
confusing
framework
linguistic
exists to its own
artifacts
causes,
with
which is
ontics.
supposed to explain. So it's just a reductio ad absurdum.
You're
lose.
just
Hold on, can I get
confusing
30
language.
Seconds? Just 30. I promise.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
speak.
Thank you. The point
Clarify.
that the point that I think is like highly important is this: were you born with logic? Was humanity born with access to logic? If the case is that humanity,
I thought you were gonna help.
I'm not. I said 30 seconds, dude.
You said you were going to help, and you lied to me.
No. I wasn't saying I was going to help you.
So Jones, we can make this super simple. This is how we act. This is how we end this. It's super, super simple.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Let's
show
go
that
for another move.
Yeah, so I'm going to put an argument out that shows that no paradigm of evidence is actually
Is the
consistent.
argument going to conform to the rules that I said? My structural invariance, is it going to
The
conform to
structural
those?
invariance depends on my apocalyptic mythoreal meta condition.
No, your apocalypse, whatever, depends on my structural invariance to even be
Right.
coherent.
That's predicted according to the apocalyptic theory of anti-realism.
Oh, it's predicted in your theory that my theory owns yours? Okay, fine.
It actually is. I'll explain to you how and why. So in apocalyptic mythorealism, how the theory itself works is that the only thing that actually exists are myths. We have the only thing that actually exists are myths. Now, if it's a myth, if it's a myth that my apocalyptic
Do these myths conform to identity, non-contradiction, orderability, inferential closure, and coherence, or not?
It transcends them.
No, these are... You can't say it transcends them, then they're not coherent. If it doesn't conform to identity, what the fuck are you talking about?
We have
Transcends coherence?
Yes.
Yeah, you're saying it transcends coherence.
The fuck, bro?
Would you like to, so I use a different
You
identity.
have nothing to say.
I do have something.
If you're saying it transcends comprehensibility, if it transcends all this shit, that just means it's not it and it can't ground it.
So, hey, Flencer, I have a completely different, specifically developed theory of identity for this theory.
I grant
That
that.
violates it.
Is it something? Is it also itself?
It's a complete self-referential theory.
Cool, that's a description. Does it ground identity or is it described by identity?
It is the actual relationship between grounding and groundedness.
What?
Okay, define the features of a grounding relation. What are they?
Self-reflexivity.
What else? No, that's irreflexive, you dumb fuck.
No, it's self-reflexivity.
No, grounding is irreflexive, asymmetric, and transitive.
Excuse me. In this theory, it's self-reflexive.
In your idiosyncratic notion of grounding, fuck all the metaphysicians that have ever existed.
Right. Yeah,
You've got something called schmounding.
No, actually,
let's hear what your schmounding theory is. Go ahead.
Are you upset about it? Are you upset about it?
No, I'm fucking excited to hear about schmounding.
Yeah.
Can I get my 30 seconds back, or is that just like not a possibility? Because
you shat all over your 30 seconds when you add them to first.
No, you're not capable of comprehending what I was saying. So
that's so fucking giant of a brain is required to comprehend what you're going to say.
Hold on. So here's the theory of identity that we use. I'm going to actually read the notes. So in my treatise, what I do is I unify two interrelated systems. And it starts off with something which I call the I am theory of identity. Now, in my I am theory of identity, I frame identity as a self-indexicality, which is distributed across a mutual web of ontological interrelation.
Is that the same self that it is reflexing itself to?
Excuse me. Talk about it when you understand the terms. Don't talk until you do.
I'm making sure that I'm following the breadcrumbs that you're laying out so closely together so I don't misconstrue it at the end.
Don't worry. You talk in 7 minutes.
Oh my God, 7 minutes. This is TikTok, man. This is that's like 8 months.
Here's how this works. Now, identity in my theory is ontological self-indexicality. And what do I mean by that? So in my theory, identity isn't something that's external or relational, but it's inherently self-reflexive, like a being's capacity to instantiate.
You just said it's not relational, and then you invoked a relation.
Excuse me. I didn't invoke a relation. I invoked a delation. And my theory describes it as a delation.
Oh my God.
So in this particular instance,
I stopped making up new shit.
So, delations are actually what contract relations into themselves. Relations are what extend delations into others. You could also see the actual concept of it through intensivity and extensivity. Right. So
I'm going to write this down. What's your concept of identity? Schmidentity?
Identity isn't something. It's not external or relation. It's inherently self-reflexive, meaning it's a being's capacity to instantiate itself through its own internal references. That's all that it is. Now, identity
something can instantiate itself.
Yeah, that's what identity is. Self-instantiation.
Okay.
So if something,
it's not, but go ahead.
No, that's actually what my theory is, and if it's my theory, then it is in the theory. Right.
Okay, so why do you use the word identity? Why don't you use a different word?
Because identity is pretty.
Well, but it's confusing. Is it
Well,
intentionally confusing?
It sounds like a problem I don't have. Maybe you have that problem. I don't. So
No,
in
I
this,
mean, it's not used by anyone anywhere ever like
doesn't
that.
matter.
You're
Doesn't matter.
You're using a word,
I'm
and it
unique.
just causes confusion.
I'm
No, I'm
unique.
just thinking that if you want to share this with anyone, not you,
I'm unique, special,
you
and
use a
creative.
different word.
No. I'm unique.
Otherwise,
No,
otherwise you're enabling an
Let him
equivocation.
talk because you're just going on, dude. Like,
Here's what I'm doing. I'm setting the new rules of how all words in this field are going to have to be used forever.
Okay.
You're going to have to
I
use.
got you.
You're going to have to use my vocabulary.
All right. So identity is inherently self-reflexive and self-instantiating. Is that what you said?
Identity is the property of self-instantiation. Right. That's all that it is. So if identity is the property of self-instantiation, identity is that property which points at itself. Now, that's impossible to deny. Now, the identity relationship is not substantive, nor is it not essential. It's indexical. So it gets around the problem of actually having to ground itself in a substance or essence.
No, this is so sloppy. This is metaphysically sloppy.
Okay.
You're treating identity as a property, like redness. That already assumes a kind of ontological status.
No, I'm not teaching it as a property.
Identity is a property is a property. What are you talking about? You said identity is a property.
Excuse me.
Is identity a property or not?
No.
Okay, so when you said identity is a property that is inherently self-reflexive and self-instantiating, you fucking lied to me.
In that particular instance, yes, it's called apocalyptic mythorealism. Yeah.
Okay, well, if anything you're going to do can just be a fucking lie, then I'm done with this discussion. It's great talking to you, Deathless.
I'm saying this.
Next time, I love you. Don't tear anyone's chests open. I got to go mow the lawn.
The only thing that actually exists are lies. The question then becomes, what is the logical relationship between them? And how do we instantiate the identity of one category of lie over another category? See, what a pussy. What a pussy.
No, but okay. I just want to say one thing. No, like literally, I wanted 30 seconds. There is a condition, and
seconds in time dilation.
What the fuck just happened?
A whole lot of nothing.
Holy shit. It's not a